I'm Don Toporowski, and I'm the CEO of ReThink Mining, where we're always on the hunt for new technologies to tackle the toughest challenges in mining. And that's what we're going to do here today. I have Mike Smocer. He's the CEO of Mine Vision Systems. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
It's great to be with you today, Don.
So what Mine Vision Systems does seems to be of real interest to the members of ReThink Mining. ReThink Mining is a consortium of the 20 largest and most innovative mining companies in the world who are looking for new technologies to transform mining. And your name just keeps coming up. And I think we're on the verge of creating a consortium to try the technology and help move it forward. So I think this conversation today is really timely. So my understanding about Mine Vision Systems is I'm thinking about all the different data that's collected in mining. You've got resource modeling, mine planning, survey, inspection, ore characterization, geology capture, other software tools, predictive maintenance. They're all doing their own thing. And you're hoping to bring them all together somehow. Tell us about that.
Well, let me put it this way. I think a lot of what you just described when you talk about predictive maintenance has parallels into other manufacturing industries. You can take technology that have been developed for different machines and use those in mining, use those in other industries. So they're much more easily transferable. We're focused on what I would call, in my own words, the production, the product development section of mining, where you're literally at the tip of the spear, where the product is extracted and trying to optimize it there. And I would argue that's the hardest thing because it's new, it's unique, it's different. You can't just take technologies from chemicals and materials and aerospace and defense and automotive and apply it here. And what the mission states, our mission, is to optimize and unify the fragmented data collection and analysis processes in underground mining. And much of that mission really stems from my own experiences over 3 decades working with other industries that make something that's a calling card. I mentioned some of them a moment ago. At the inception of technologies like this and seeing all of these neat ideas, these technologies come out in the market, some of which good, some of which not so good, but most of them failing. And perhaps I believe the biggest reason is that amongst the best technologies is they were one-trick ponies, and they asked more of the customers in terms of adoption than they delivered in terms of value. They took an industry that never unified or brought together technologies and integrated them. And instead of making that part of the company's mission, they asked the industry to do that while they're simultaneously trying to produce their product. And that's both unfair to the customers and to the providers that are trying to build the product with their investors. So that's a core part of who we are, is we build out our technologies. We don't put anything in market that doesn't understand the workflows that spit upstream and downstream, who's using it, that doesn't understand what they're trying to produce and when. They can't just stop everything. And it doesn't think about what could happen and how we can expand this over the next 2-3 years. So we don't end up just providing a technology that somebody has to throw out in 2 years at the risk of potentially their job.
So the technology that's captured the attention of these miners is your face capture system. What is that? What data is it collecting and how does it change things?
So face capture is 3 different sensing modalities that are fused together in real time for analysis and decision-making by geologists and mining engineers. The first sensing modality is spatial 3D modeling. That's just point clouds with LiDAR. LiDAR in general is somewhat ubiquitous underground now, common. But that just happens to be a single component of our sensor fusion technologies. The second is imaging, and we're agnostic to the type of camera. We happen to be using a high definition camera currently, based on the application that we're serving and the expectations of our customer base. The third sensing modality is really, I might argue, the reason for our being, or the opportunity creator for anything else we choose to do, including the technology that we're bringing to bear right now. And that is what we call an underground GPS platform. And this goes back to our history that we can get into if you wish. But we're able to locate precisely where a piece of equipment or a person or a location or a map is literally in real time on the ground, leveraging existing survey that happens with or without us. And it's the fusion of those technologies together that allows us to capture the data that's happening at the production mine face, the ribs and the backs and everywhere else around it to enable better decision making for those in production.
That's what captured my attention. And I think I've heard it first referred to as walkable GPS or something like that. And I understand that came from the early work of the company working with robots, trying to identify their location underground. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Don. The company, before it was founded in 2015, has a history going back to Carnegie Mellon here in Pittsburgh, which for those that don't know, and I think many probably do, Carnegie Mellon has been really, let's say, a preeminent robotics center for decades now. And there are a lot of technologies that came out of Carnegie Mellon. And one of the challenges, the early challenges that Carnegie Mellon and its technology faced is you can build a technology, but that doesn't make it a product that's useful for specific industry applications. And partly with the help of Carnegie Mellon, the National Robotics Engineering Center was stood up, it's still here in Pittsburgh. And its purpose was to allow different industries, those that wish to engage in robotics innovation, to help fund projects to turn certain technologies into products that would work for their industries. And Goldfields was an early active contributor. Again, this is before we were founded, between 2007 and 2012, funding a project to build an articulated underground robot. And the short story is that the robot ended up at that time not being commercially viable, but it was the perception system and what was built around it in terms of building this platform to understand precise location underground that ended up being the pivot, the astounding technology that was produced from that effort that ultimately led to the founding of the company.
So now you have the face capture system. An operator can use it. The system's going to know exactly where it is as it collects the data. This is going to be great. But the next step, I think, that has everyone excited is the notion that we could put this on a jumbo or some autonomous vehicle and get people out of the mine. Like, I understand you can operate this thing already more than 10 meters from the face, which is an amazing achievement to begin with. But if we can get people out of the mine entirely, speed production, have fewer delays, that would be great too. So what's the next step to get you to that point?
Yeah, so when you think about the direction that we're going, there are three words that constantly come to my mind. One is remote, one is predictive, and the third is embedded. And remote is basically what you described. It's saying that how do we collect this data instead of just providing a much better way for those that wish to collect data to collect it, get more of it. How do we actually now remove them from the mine so that they then can leverage their decision-making power instead of spending it walking and riding on carts from mine face to mine face during the mine, during their shift. So that is the first step. The second one is predictive. How do you start using that data in a way that you can address the industry's issue with 40% of their top talent retiring in the next 10 years and a dearth of mining engineers and geologists that are going to school? That is a major resource problem in the mining industry. And leveraging the best employees that you have is partly enabled by the idea of taking the data that we're collecting and now and building out predictive models. And the final one is embedded. We collect data, as we just discussed a moment ago, Don, that has any number of downstream impacts. And right now we're addressing one, but we want to clean out this carcass in a way. Like, there's a lot of company and a lot of data that's collected not only in mining, but that ends up being dead data because it's not leveraged properly. It's a nice idea, but it's not something that's thought about across the entire enterprise. So right now, there's no question that we're having a direct impact to the tune of millions of dollars of benefit a year based on the ROI analyses that we sponsor with our customers just with the data we're collecting. But now imagine that this data is sitting on an executive's desk day to day to do reconciliation and test how they're doing. That's where we start to look to go. But it starts to become enabled, number one, by putting it on jumbos, and number two, by building out a cloud platform that ends up producing that data and processing it and surfacing it in ways that matter to more parts of the operation than just those that are served by the geologists and the mining engineers.
So let's imagine that we had a group of mining companies who wanted to see your technology mounted on a jumbo or some piece of autonomous equipment. How could they help to make that sort of piloting and that testing and that product development successful? What would you want to see from them?
So partnering with customers is part of our DNA. So I'll just tell you the two things that happen as a consequence of that for both our customers. I should be clear, this is mutual, and for us. Number one is just pure speed. I mean, partly the ability to fund efforts to get to milestones faster for the sake of industry, and it helps us, is to me a true partnership. The second is clarity. And I'm fond of saying, and this is honestly, Don, the biggest one to answer your question, is that I'm fond of saying for decades now, and I've experienced both sides of this, that a transformational technology that's serving an industry that existed and did things just well enough long before you ever got there with your concept of technology. You may know a lot because you've hired, as we have, people from the industry that understand the language, understand the problem set, and you can get 95% of the way there with your product. That sounds pretty good, but it's really the 5% that you're missing that prevents it from being adopted, or at least adopted in ways that hit the vision of the technology provider and the opportunity that would otherwise exist with the customer base. And that's where these partnerships fit in. So what a consortium could do, and what we already do work with partners on, in fact, Base Capture is a product of this type of partnership, is shared cost funded development with regular insights and testing along the way, getting certainly the 95% checked off, but more importantly, that last 5% that's hard for any of us to get in a first generation without that type of partnership leading up to the release of a product.
I had made a note here that you'd had an interesting partnership with Hecla and Nevada Gold. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that goes back to early days, and that's part of what enticed me to join the company when the position was offered to me. Is that we had a product that was not yet released at the time. It was probably about 9 or 10 months away from being released, and not being from a mining industry, I kind of gave hints on some of the other things that I've done in my career. I'm not the one to say this is a product that absolutely will work. I could definitely understand the idea and the value proposition, but I always worry about that last 5%. And it was the fact that we already had engagements with Nevada Gold and with Hecla, and we're in active partnership to develop the product that's now become Face Capture that we have on the market that's really starting to scale significantly. And the beauty of that story is that we had this ingredient list of technologies. As we formed the company, we tested convergence and shaft scanning and general mine mapping. We were doing projects to the tune of 50, 60, 70 consultation projects where we ate our own dog food and delivered value, but they were one-off delivery of value to these customers. And it was those two companies that said, look, you're solving great stuff for us, but if you can only do this, this is where the real value is. This is the production tip of the spear. This is where decisions get made that positively or negatively influence so much cost and so many outcomes downstream. And this is an area that's not safe for some of our people to walk up to the mine face and collect this data. And it was those partnerships that led to Face Capture, and it put us on the path to great success at this point.
So today, like I would think amongst miners, the value of precise face mapping is pretty well accepted. What's the value proposition for the face capture technology exactly today?
Yeah, so I'm going to read something, a couple bullet points to you, because we like to think in terms of what our customers say, not just what we think will happen. Every time we engage with a customer, remember we're selling something that historically had not been on the market before. It's not like selling compute power where you pick five people that do it roughly the same and then you come up with a price and service level, whatever else. So there's an effort there. There's a psychology in the selling to make sure that people feel comfortable, and we're respective of that, respectful of that. Part of what we end up doing out of the gate is that nobody says this isn't valuable. The mapping that exists today, to use the expression of one of the executives that I was speaking to, he said, look, you talk about mapping today, it's really not mapping, it's more like we're drawing cartoons. So they think it's worth it to draw cartoons because the value is so significant, but you can only imagine what the difference between drawing cartoons on pieces of paper and getting an accurate, precise 3D, precisely georeferenced scan that you can then preserve for all of time and compare to past analyses. It's enormous. So they respect that. The question then becomes is, okay, how do we put this into numbers that a CFO will understand? So we do ROI analyses in partnership with each one of our customers. And it's a little bit different depending on the material, the type of mine, what their operations look like, how their staffing is set up, how they manage their business. I'm going to give you one that's specific from, let's just call them a platinum group metals miner. Annual benefits of reducing deletion of resources. This is due to modifying factors that occur while you're actively mining against a mine plan. $2.736 million. Remember, these are reviewed by the customer. This isn't just our idea. Annual benefits of reducing overbreak and associated unnecessary waste removal. $312,000. Annual benefits of replacing overbreak waste with high quality ore. $4.014 million. Finally, annual benefits due to face capture's ability to remove current survey bottleneck. In other words, the amount of time you end up wasting not being able to get precise data because you can't get a surveyor there. $3.428 million. These are astounding numbers. And this is with somebody holding it, and there is some idea downstream within a year of what this might mean on equipment with this customer. And there's some development we're going to do with them to start making this more real beyond just the initial value propositions. But it's striking, and it will only grow from here as we start to move this out and embed it across different constituents within the mining companies that we serve.
Not having a lot of experience in mining, I understand that the way resource modeling is done is you do a bunch of drill holes, get your information, and create kind of a 3D dimension of the ore body. And what I understand about your technology is it's helpful improving resource modeling. It gets us more accurate, better GPS located. Tell us a little bit about that, about how you improve the vision of the ore body as the technology is put to use.
So we're downstream of that. When the exploration is done and the drilling and the production of the block model, that's all happening before the mining actually begins to occur. So a mine is created, or at least a mine plan is created. The judgment that money can be made by that mine has been made, and then execution begins. But I mean, you can only imagine how inaccurate the model is at that point. So real world happens. So your plan was once famously said, no battle plan survives the first shot of the war, and mining companies know this. And I guess the simplified way to express where the value comes is just through this process of reconciliation, which all of these mines go through. And that is, okay, we have a plan. How closely to that plan are we executing, and what should we do about it, and who does it affect? Number one, mine plans versus actual mined volumes. Are they extracting as much ore as they expect? Number two, grade estimates versus actual grades. Is the quality of the ore matching what was actually modeled? These are decisions that sometimes they can only make once a month, and even then with poor quality data, and it directly has an impact on the viability of the mine and the credibility of the mining company to its public investors. The tonnage estimates versus actual tonnage. Are they mining the right amount of material? Because that's all part of the assumptions with mining. And then finally, the forecasted versus the actual recovery. How much metal did they expect when they put the mine plan together versus what they're actually getting? And I'll just finish this answer by saying there was a chief operating officer of one of our customers who I was at an event with, and I was asking him. I said, "Look, I think I know what we do. My team tells me what we do, but you're in this business. I'd like to understand. Tell me, why are you buying our technology and you being one of the first to buy it?" And he said, "Mike, it's kind of like I'm a football coach." He said, "I have a great plan going into the game to beat the opponent and win. But then the game starts and I have no idea what's happening. I don't know what yard line, what the score is, how the other player's playing, if anybody's hurt. And then halftime happens and I get to go in and I get to learn all the data from the first half. And sometimes it's been managed or massaged in ways that aren't useful for me. So I build a new plan based on all that history. And then the same thing repeats itself in the second half. At the end of the game, I find out if I won or not. Like, who wants to do business like that?" And I might argue that, like, all industries are craving this: more predictability, more certainty, less risk. And in many cases, that's what we're doing. Once a mine begins production and you're moving the mine face forward and you're underground, how do you get the information that allows you to course correct, check your assumptions, and make better decisions, and deliver better information, not only to your own resources, but also to the public that's waiting for those reports on how much you produced, how closely you're matching your resource model, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So, what regions of the world have you been able to make the most progress in? It seems to me there's a lot of interest uh, with Canadian miners. What about Europe, Australia, South America? Are you in a position to serve those regions yet, or where are you?
Yeah, yeah, very, very much so. So we started out, my route to this, I'm an engineer, but I spent most of my career in customer facing leadership roles. So I always think about, okay, where is the market and what is the ideal customer profile? And that's one of the first things I did when I was coming on board at the company. And this is the way that I looked at it: critical minerals, precious metals in underground mines. And I definitely ruled out China and Russia for maybe obvious reasons. And North America produces about 100, say Australia 90, Africa, principally South Africa, produces about 80, and then you got 40 or 50 down into Chile and Peru and other places in South America, and the rest is sort of a long tail. So what do? We focused on North America naturally. It's the biggest, and we're here. And you're right, Canada's been absolutely dominant for us. It's been fun to start seeing the network effects of doing business in Canada. These are small industries, as I think you know well. And to succeed in one place is starting to get word of mouth going, and it's ramping up quite quickly. Australia, we can reach though now too. We just signed, this is public in a press release, a reseller agreement with Datamine. It's based out of Brisbane, and that's instructive. They once upon a time have sold CyberVision, and we're close partners with them. And there's a very nice integration between our technologies now, and now they represent us. We also signed up Ramjack in Africa, who's a very well esteemed technology provider and change management partner for that market, and they're expanding globally as well. We have a reseller in Kazakhstan to hit some of those areas and to have local language support and local time zone support. And we just signed up. We don't have a press release yet, but I'll say it now. Tech Mining's down in Chile. So we have South American representation as well. We recognize the need to have local support, local language support, so we're nailing that. But we also recognize the need to deal with the largest global companies at the enterprise level for their benefit and for ours. So everything isn't a one-off. And we're able to do both with this network that we're starting to build.
From your perspective, how do you see the mining industry evolving with respect to data and artificial intelligence systems?
I'll say this from, again, 30 years of experience watching every discrete product industry under the sun go through similar transformations, being a part, and it's not as fully realized yet in chemicals and materials, but definitely further advanced than mining. And mining now going through the same thing. First of all, Discrete products were the first to kind of go through this digitalization idea. And in fact, they were doing it before digitalization became a common word, and it's overused, no doubt about that. But the time period between this, wherever the starting gun was fired there and the finish, and there's no such thing as a finish, so just imagine one. The time period with discrete products is significantly longer than will exist with chemicals and materials. And part of it's because the evidence is in. The wondering about whether computers can help you make better decisions and optimize operations and manufacturing. Nobody questions that anymore. It's just a matter of who you want to believe and how you best deploy it while you're simultaneously trying to run your operations. So chemicals is second. I see mining following the same thing, but the time period between the starting gun and crossing the finish line of mining, it will be shorter. And that's both presents opportunity for the winners out there. And there sometimes is a reframing of winners and losers through these transformations. We look for those that are leaders and that are the biggest companies in the world. And we've done quite well with that. We want people that are already swimming our direction. They may not know exactly what we can provide and all of the potential for the technologies in and around us that we provide and how we work with our partners, technology partners. But they're ready for it. They're receptive for it. Other companies, not so much. There's a theory that you can go after this as a technology provider, the smaller companies, and they can adopt faster. And honestly, that's not really true in most instances in mining. It doesn't mean that there aren't some gems out there. There are amongst smaller companies, but it's the larger companies that have these huge pressures. That they're mechanized. They're thinking about optimizing everything going into the future. They can't exist. They're not just waiting for somebody to acquire them. There's a lot of the conveniences that don't exist there. So I think the time frame is going to be smaller. I think the opportunity for those that embrace the right partners and partnerships like I've described is significantly greater. If they're able to do it well and right and early because of that shortened time frame. And I think there are some that will end up being followers, but that's not a vote on the industry one way or the other. It's just how these technology adoptions occur. And we're looking for the right partners now, as we've described during this podcast.
So my sense in speaking with the companies you're already working with, you're working with a lot more than some of the young companies we're interacting with. And they express the same sort of delight, I guess, as that thing you just read. So that was satisfying to me to feel like technology's good, it's legit, it's got a great value proposition, and you're going to succeed with it. So that brings us back to this project we're trying to put together at ReThink Mining and this consortium. What we're trying to do is take all of the current users of the Mine Vision Systems technology, face mapping, bring them together, help this company move faster so we can get it on autonomous vehicles, get it on a jumbo, get it mounted, and move it even more quickly ahead. So if you're a listener of this podcast and you're interested in that kind of thing, let us know. You can get involved in that consortium. And we'll be having an informational web conference with Mike and his team coming soon. Anything else we need to let the members know, Mike, about what you're trying to accomplish?
I think the only thing that I would finish with, Don, is that I think there's a great opportunity here. I've been involved now with the mining industry, starting as a board member and then as the CEO of this company for about 4 years. I'm fascinated with the work that this industry does, quality of the people that are doing that work, and the fact that it's in such a center of geopolitics, of the economy, of really everything that matters to so many different industries and countries around the world. I think there are great opportunities, and we aim to be a company that helps make the adoption of this technology and the realization of the potential through the use of technology as frictionless and as easy as possible. But with partnerships, that becomes even more possible and real. And we look forward to continuing the conversation, Don.
Thanks for joining us today, Mike, and good luck to you and your team at Mine Vision Systems.
Don, thank you for the time today.
Bye-bye.